The paper bag was still warm when he set it in front of me, and for the first time in months, so was something inside my chest. I didn't know it yet, but that paper bag would change my Mondays, and a few strangers, for good. Outside, the window fogged a soft oval, like the morning was saving a seat for hope. I'm Rachel, and that gray Monday in Portland had started like all the others. Alarm at 6:30, shower at 6:45, pretending to eat breakfast while really just pushing granola around in a bowl. 3 months since the divorce papers, 2 months since Mom's diagnosis, 1 month since my best friend moved to Boston. But who was counting? The apartment felt too big now. David had taken his things but left the ghosts. The indent in his side of the couch, the empty hook where his guitar used to hang, the silence where arguments used to live. I wasn't enough, or at least that's how the empty room said it back to me. Spaces still shaped like someone else. The apartment even smelled like yesterday's arguments cooling on the counter. I'd started leaving earlier for work just to escape the emptiness. But that Monday was a sick day. Not sick in body, sick in spirit. The kind where getting dressed feels like climbing Everest in flip-flops. The rain wasn't even trying that morning. It just hung in the air like unfinished business, turning everything damp without the satisfaction of an actual downpour. My hair had given up any pretense of cooperation, and I'd given up caring. Morrison Street coffee was my hiding place. Corner booth, back to the wall, perfect view of everyone living their normal lives, while mine felt like it was held together with expired tape. The espresso machine hissed. Rain ticked the glass like a metronome for Monday. I had my headphones in, but no music playing. Just wanted the barrier, the universal signal for, please don't talk to me. The book in front of me was something about finding joy in everyday moments. I'd bought it in a fit of optimism 3 weeks ago. Now the words swam on the page like they were written in a language I used to know but had forgotten. That's when he walked in. The door chimed its little welcome, and this older gentleman shuffled through like he had all the time in the world. He had a paper bag tucked under his arm, edges darkened with butter. 70-something maybe, wearing a beige raincoat that had clearly been his companion through countless Oregon winters. His hair stuck out in silver tufts, like dandelion seeds ready to make wishes on. But it was his face that made me look twice. He was smiling. Not the tight-lipped courtesy smile we all wear like armor. This was the real thing, starting from his eyes and spreading outward like ripples in still water. He smiled at the barista. Really smiled, like her presence behind the counter was the best surprise of his morning. He smiled at the couple arguing quietly over laptop screens. He smiled at the mom trying to wrangle a toddler who'd decided the floor was lava. He even smiled at the teenager in the opposite corner who was clearly trying to look as unapproachable as possible. "Morning, Kenneth," the barista called out. "The usual." "Actually, Maria," he said, that worn velvet voice easy. "Just a black coffee. Oh, and a few extra napkins. Brought something to share?" "Someone's feeling generous today," she teased, already reaching for a cup. "Oh, generosity's contagious," he said, pulling out a wallet that had seen better decades. "Caught it from Helen years ago. Never did find a cure." Maria slid over a stack of napkins like they were part of a ritual she knew by heart. I watched him count out bills with careful precision, the way my grandfather used to, making sure each one was facing the same direction. His hands were steady, but spotted with age, a wedding ring still catching the light. There was something about the way he moved through the world. Deliberate, but not slow, like someone who'd learned the difference between rushing and purposeful. They chatted about the weather, about her classes at Portland State, about whether the Blazers had any chance this season. Normal conversation, but he listened like her words were precious, nodding and asking follow-up questions that showed he actually heard her. When she mentioned her statistics midterm, he offered encouragement that somehow didn't sound hollow. "Statistics is just storytelling with numbers. You'll find the story." When had I last listened to anyone like that? When had anyone last listened to me that way? He paid, tucked his wallet away, and headed for the door with his paper bag treasure. The smell of cinnamon and warm dough trailed behind him like a comet's tail. I went back to staring at my unread page, trying to look busy with my non-life. But then the door chime sang again. Backwards this time. He was coming back in. His shoes squeaked on the tile floor, leaving little wet prints like breadcrumbs. He walked with purpose, not shuffling now, straight toward my corner booth. My chest tightened. My reflexes grabbed for invisibility, chin down, eyes on the page I wasn't reading. Even my pulse tried to be quiet. I didn't know this man. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I especially didn't want to talk to someone who looked like they had their life together enough to smile at strangers on a Monday morning. He stopped right at my table. Up close, I could see his eyes were the kind of blue that comes from looking at the ocean for 70 years. Deep laugh lines mapped a life of joy across his face. He smelled like cinnamon and rain and something else. Maybe hope, if hope had a scent. "Excuse me," he said, and his voice was gentle enough not to startle. "You look like you could use one of these." Before I could respond, before I could deploy my arsenal of polite deflections, he set the paper bag on my table. Still warm. The heat from it spread through the laminate tabletop like a tiny sun. The smell of cinnamon and brown sugar and butter rose up between us, and suddenly I was 8 years old in my grandmother's kitchen, back when the world made sense and love came shaped like baked goods. "I baked them fresh last night," he continued, his hands now free to gesture. "Sometimes a little sweetness helps more than we think." I blinked, my carefully constructed walls wobbling. "Oh, thank you. That's really kind." The words came out smaller than I intended, like they'd been folded too many times. He chuckled, and it wasn't the polite laugh you give to fill silence. This was real amusement, like the universe had told him a gentle joke. "Well, the world's only as kind as the people in it. My wife taught me that. She's been gone 6 years now, but her recipes..." He tapped the bag softly. "They keep teaching me things." He looked at me then, really looked, and I had the strangest feeling he could see all the broken places, all the sharp edges I'd been trying to smooth down. Helen used to say that cinnamon rolls were basically edible hugs. "Kenneth," she'd tell me, "you can't solve everyone's problems, but you can make sure they don't face them on an empty stomach." Something in my chest cracked. Not broke. Cracked like ice starting to thaw. "I can't take your cinnamon rolls," I said, even as my hand moved toward the bag without my permission. "They're not mine anymore," he said simply. "They're yours. That's how gifts work." He adjusted his raincoat, preparing to leave. "Besides, I kept 2 for myself. I'm not a saint. 1 for breakfast, 1 for the memory." There was a story in that last part, I could tell. The way his voice dipped on memory, like he was touching something tender. He tipped his head, an old-fashioned gesture that belonged to a generation that still wrote thank you notes by hand, and turned to go. At the door, he paused, looked back. "One more thing. Whatever it is that's got you reading that book without seeing the words, it gets better. Different, maybe, but better." Then he was gone, the door chime singing his exit, leaving me alone with a warm paper bag and the sudden, overwhelming urge to cry. Inside the bag were 3 cinnamon rolls, each one slightly imperfect in that way homemade things are. The icing had dripped down the sides in messy rivers, pooling at the bottom of the bag. They were still warm enough that steam rose when I tore one open. The layers separated like pages of a book I actually wanted to read. The first bite was transcendent. Not because it was the world's best cinnamon roll, though it was ridiculously good. It was transcendent because it was given freely, without expectation, by someone who saw a stranger struggling and decided to do something about it. The sweetness wasn't just sugar and cinnamon. It was recognition. It was connection. It was someone saying, "I see you, and you matter." I ate all 3 rolls sitting in that booth, slowly, deliberately, tasting each bite. Maria the barista raised an eyebrow when she came to refill my coffee, saw the destruction of icing and crumbs. "Kenneth got you, huh?" she said, smiling. "He does that. Finds people who need finding." Does he come here often?" "Every Monday," she said, settling into the booth across from me like we were old friends. "Always bakes on Sunday nights. Says it helps him sleep knowing there's something good waiting for morning. Lost his wife a while back, Helen, breast cancer, fought it for 3 years like an absolute warrior." She set my refill down, steam ribboning up between us, then leaned in conspiratorially. He told me once that near the end, when she could barely eat anything, she asked for one of her cinnamon rolls. He baked them at 2 a.m, brought them to the hospice still warm. She managed 3 bites and said, "Perfect, Kenneth. Now you know how to make them for both of us." For a second, the whole cafe smelled like a kitchen light left on for someone you love. Maria dabbed at her eyes with her apron. "Sorry, that story always gets me. Anyway, after she passed, he couldn't sleep Sunday nights. Said the bed felt too big, the house too quiet. So he started baking her recipes. Then he started bringing them here, giving them away. Says it makes him feel like she's still spreading joy around." "How does he know?" I asked. "Who needs them, I mean?" Maria shrugged. "He says Helen taught him to look. The ones who need sweetness most," she used to say, "are usually the ones who've forgotten what it tastes like." After she left, I sat there for another hour. The book stayed closed. Instead, I watched people come and go, really watched them. The tired mom got her toddler settled with a muffin. The arguing couple found something to laugh about. The unapproachable teenager left with what might have been a smile. Everyone carrying their own weight, their own worries, their own warm paper bags of possibility. That night, I called my mom. First time in 2 weeks. We talked about nothing important. Her doctor's appointments, the new medication, how the neighbor's cat kept stealing her newspaper. But we talked. The words weren't perfect, but they were warm. "You sound different," she said near the end of the call. "Better." "I had a good day," I told her. And for the first time in months, it wasn't a lie. A week later, I found myself in the grocery store, staring at the baking aisle like it was written in hieroglyphics. I hadn't baked since college, and even then it was mostly box mix brownies at 2 a.m. But Kenneth's words kept echoing. "The world's only as kind as the people in it." An older woman with a cart full of baking supplies stopped beside me. "Look lost, honey?" "I'm trying to make cinnamon rolls," I admitted, "but I have no idea what I'm doing." She lit up like I'd just given her a present. "Oh, from scratch? How wonderful. Here, let me help." For the next 20 minutes, she walked me through every ingredient, explaining which brands were best, why bread flour mattered, how to tell if yeast was still active. She even wrote her phone number on my receipt. "In case you have questions, I'm Dorothy. Been baking for 60 years and I still burn things sometimes." Kindness, it turns out, shops in flour. I bought flour, yeast, cinnamon, Ceylon, because Dorothy insisted it made a difference. Brown sugar, dark, not light, more butter than any reasonable person needs. Total damage, $43.16, the price of hope, itemized. That Sunday, I packed 6 of them in a paper bag and went to Laurelhurst Park. Found a bench near the duck pond and waited. It didn't take long. A woman about my age sat on the next bench over, holding her phone like it might bite her, tears running silent races down her cheeks. I watched her for a moment, recognizing the posture, the way she held her shoulders like they were bearing invisible weight, the way she kept starting to make a call and then stopping. I knew that dance. The "I should call someone, but what would I say" shuffle. I walked over before I could talk myself out of it. My hands shook slightly, the paper bag crinkling. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaking only a little. "You look like you could use one of these." She looked up, startled, at the paper bag I was offering. Mascara had drawn modern art down her cheeks. What? Cinnamon rolls, I said. Homemade. Well, home attempted. They help, more than you'd think. She took the bag like it might evaporate, opened it. The smell did its work, and I saw her shoulders drop just a fraction. Then she bit into one, and her whole face changed. The same cracking open I'd felt a week ago. The moment sweetness meets sorrow and somehow makes it bearable. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Bad day? I asked, then immediately wanted to kick myself, obviously. She laughed, but it came out watery. Bad year, my dad just hospice called. They think it's soon. I'm supposed to fly home, but I can't. I can't make myself buy the ticket because that makes it real, you know? I did know. I sat down on the bench, not too close. My mom has cancer. Every time I buy a plane ticket to visit, I wonder if it's the last one. We sat there for a minute, two strangers connected by grief and cinnamon sugar. Then she took a bite of the roll and her eyes widened. Oh my God, this is amazing! Really? It's only my third attempt. There's a whole battalion of failed rolls in my garbage can. She laughed again, realer this time. I'm Emma. Rachel, and that's my bench over there if you want company while you eat. Or if you need to be alone, that's okay too. Sometimes we need sweetness and solitude in equal measure. She considered, then stood. Company sounds good. Maybe you can tell me how someone learns to make comfort food this comforting. I didn't stay long. Kenneth hadn't stayed. Some gifts are meant to be given and released like dandelion wishes on the wind. But I stayed long enough to see her shoulders unhunch, to hear her book the flight home, to watch her save my phone number under Cinnamon Roll Angel. She texted her brother, I'm coming, save me a seat by Dad. That was 6 months ago. Now I bake every Saturday night. It does help with sleep, knowing there's something good waiting for morning. My cinnamon rolls have gotten better. Found Kenneth's wife's recipe tucked inside a library cookbook, written on an index card in careful cursive. Helen's Sunday Rolls, for sharing. I take them different places. The park, the bus station. Sometimes I leave them at the hospital where Mom gets her treatments with a note, for whoever needs sweetness today. I don't always see who takes them. That's not the point. Last month, I saw Kenneth again. Same coffee shop, same booth, different Monday. He was giving a paper bag to a young man who looked like the world had been using him as a punching bag. I waited until he was leaving to approach. Kenneth? He turned, that same sunshine smile spreading across his face. Yes? I'm Rachel. You gave me cinnamon rolls 6 months ago. I just wanted to say... I pulled out my own paper bag, still warm from that morning's baking. Thank you, and these are for you. He took the bag with hands that trembled just slightly, looked inside. His eyes got misty. Helen's recipe? Found it at the library. Hope that's okay. Okay? He laughed, but it came out watery. It's perfect. She always said her recipes weren't meant to be kept secret. They were meant to be shared until everyone knew how to make the world a little sweeter. We stood there for a moment. Two people connected by flour and cinnamon, and the radical belief that small kindnesses matter. Then he tipped his head in that old-fashioned way and headed for the door. Kenneth, I called after him. Same time next Monday? He turned back, smiling. Wouldn't miss it. Maybe we can compare notes. I've been working on her apple turnovers. Now we meet every Monday. Sometimes we bake together. He's teaching me Helen's whole repertoire. Sometimes we just share stories of who we found, who needed finding. The teenager from the coffee shop joined us last week. Turns out she's been leaving homemade cookies at the library study tables during finals week. Maria, the barista, says we're starting a movement. I don't know about that. I just know that on a gray Monday when the rain couldn't quite fall, a stranger saw me drowning and threw me a life preserver shaped like a cinnamon roll. He reminded me that the world's only as kind as the people in it, and that sometimes, most times, kindness comes in small packages. The kind that fit in paper bags. The kind that says, "I see you." The kind that teaches you that even when you're not okay, you can still help someone else be a little more okay. The kind that spreads like icing, messy and sweet and absolutely everywhere. My life still has heavy days. Mom's still sick. The divorce still happened. My best friend still lives 3,000 miles away. But now I know the secret Kenneth's wife Helen knew. When the world feels cold, you bake something warm. When you feel alone, you share what you have. When you can't find the light, you become it for someone else. One paper bag at a time, one cinnamon roll at a time, one small sweet kindness at a time. Because Kenneth was right, the world's only as kind as the people in it. And it turns out when you start looking, there are a lot more kind people than you'd think. They're in coffee shops and parks and bus stations and hospitals. They're baking in their kitchens on Saturday nights, planning Monday morning missions. They're carrying paper bags full of possibility, looking for people who need finding. A stranger at the window handed his umbrella to another, and the door chime applauded twice. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they find you exactly when you need them most. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have cinnamon rolls in the oven. Helen's recipe with my own twist. A little cardamom in the filling. Because traditions are meant to grow, to change hands and gather new flavors while keeping their heart intact. There's a coffee shop I've been meaning to visit. Heard they have a corner booth where someone sits every morning, reading a book they're not really seeing. I tuck the bag close, feel the heat find my hands the way comfort finds a pulse. I think they might need a paper bag. I think we all do sometimes.